What's up? How's it going, world? Commish here, aka Pete, and this is the first episode of the Commish Show. Welcome. I've been looking at doing something like this for a while in my own league, the League of Extraordinary Fantasy Gentlemen, hashtag LXFG. We've been in practice for about 12 years, maybe? A long time, since high school. So, kind of dating myself there. Yeah, we've been around for a while, so I've been the commish for probably about 4 years. It feels like a lot longer than that. But been through a lot of ups and downs as the commish. You know, a lot of unruly managers out there, a lot of corralling people, a lot of rule changes, just a lot of adversity as the commish. And now I'm doing my own podcast. We'll see how these ungrateful bastards respond to this. But as you all know, any of you out there that are the commissioner of your league, you know it's a very thankless position. And you know what? That's why we do it. Maybe that's why we do it. But yeah, been a commissioner for about 4 years now. I don't know if that makes me qualified to do this or not. But what does is, for my league, I do a weekly video show where Sammy, hey, that's my dog Sammy. She's in here because she's scared of the thunder. If you're watching on video, you can see her. If you're just listening, then you can probably just hear her panting really loud. That's not me. That's her. But what I do in my league is I do a State of the League brought to them by the commish every week. It's usually it started at about 5 to 10 minutes, and then it got all the way up to 15 to 20, where I basically recapped all the matchups, talk about who blew up, who was a dud, who was a bust, who people are probably looking to pick up, recapped trades within the league, and also in the off-season give news about the draft, give news about off-season functions that we have, like the Fantasy Gentleman's Dinner, which is not as risque as it sounds. It's more of like a steakhouse and wine and whiskey type of night versus a, gentleman's club type dinner. Does that sound weird? Different steak? This is like cooked steak and whiskey that we do. We do that in December. And so yeah, that's how kind of I got started, was doing my own what I call the State of the League, weekly State of the League. I've got some really good throwback videos probably for the past 4 years. And those probably, hopefully, will never see the light of day, but maybe one day that will happen. So, what I would like to do, and what I'm doing, is the Commish podcast. It's going to be a little bit more general, and it's going to be a little bit more... it's not going to be very stat-oriented. I listen to a lot of fantasy podcasts and shows, and a lot of those guys get really caught in the weeds with different stats and different trends, and most of them are stats that really don't matter or hold any weight at all. They're just trying to sound smart and fancy, and it's more of a keep it simple, stupid type of thing. Great advice, hurts my feelings every time. Just keep it simple, and that's really what this podcast is going to be. So in the off season here, going up through kickoff, which is the first week of September, going to be giving just some general advice on how to set up your league, how to approach the draft, and some different things that, I've got a list here of some different episodes I'm going to do. I'm going to do a couple mock drafts, going to do a first 2 round rundown of the players in them, and who you should look at and who you should kind of, be wary of. And I want to talk about some different fundamentals to setting up your league, and also for drafting, and then also post draft, how to manage your team. So just kind of a fun and light and hopefully entertaining podcast. If not, let me know, and I will take your advice, and I'll put it into my suggestion box, which is actually, it's a trash can. There's just trash in here. That's where I'm going to put your suggestions. So thank you for them. And that's my Jameis jersey. He's going to be suspended the first 4 weeks of the season, first 3 or 4 weeks, for something he did to an Uber driver, some kind of not so unsolicited groping, unappreciative groping. And I've got his jersey on my wall, so I guess that makes me a degenerate. But he does have, if you look right there, if you're looking at it in the video, that's his signature. Jabu signed it, and He's actually a good guy when he's not groping Uber drivers and yelling profanities in the student union at Florida State. So, anyways, I digress. Today, what I wanted to do is talk about what I'm going to call new faces, new places. So, in the offseason, the NFL, there's a lot of moves in the offseason. A lot of you probably check out after the Super Bowl or really after Christmas because you're just kind of sick of football and, just didn't follow what happened after the season. And a lot happened. So I'm going to kind of go over a few of those things real quick to just kind of get y'all back in the groove, in the know, so you know who's on what team, coaching changes, player changes, and what that means for fantasy. So I'm going to start off with coaches. There's 5 new head coaches in the NFL this year. The first one, Mike Vrabel. He's the Titans head coach. So the Titans have a new head coach, young quarterback in Marcus Mariota. They also got a new running back, Dion Lewis, and DeMarco Murray, their old running back, left. So got a lot of changes in the Titans organization. They made the playoffs last year, it's kind of weird to see them fire their head coach, but they've got a new head coach in. His name's Mike Vrabel, and he was the D coordinator for the Texans. Texans had a great defense last year, so he got hired as the Titans head coach. This guy, very offensive-minded coach. His name is Matt Nagy, and he's the new head coach for the Bears. So the Bears also have a young quarterback. His name's Mitch Trubisky. Most of you probably know that. And Matt Nagy was the offensive coordinator for the Chiefs last year. So that has a big fantasy impact because obviously he's offensive-minded. He did really good last year. There was a lot of fantasy production from Kansas City's offense, especially from Alex Smith, from Travis Kelce, their tight end, from Tyreek Hill, their wide receiver, who's kind of like a hybrid special teams. He's not really he's a wide receiver, but he's not really a running back. He's like a special play type guy. So he did really well at the Chiefs last year, and then also obviously Kareem Hunt, the rookie running back for Kansas City. So now this guy Matt Nagy, he went from offensive coordinator of the Chiefs, where he had a lot of fantasy production. Now he's the head coach of the Bears. He's got a second-year quarterback. He's got a really good young running back in Jordan Howard. He's got a really explosive, kind of similar player to Tyreek Hill in Tariq Cohen, who is also a running back for the Bears. They also got a new tight end, and Trey Burton, and he was the fill-in last year for the Eagles when who's that? Someone just pulled up outside my house. So Trey Burton's the new tight end, and so that's what's going on with the Bears. Steve Wilkes, he is the new coach for the Cardinals. He was the Panthers' D coordinator, which is interesting. The Cardinals, they had a really bad defense last year, and their offense was really bad. They were just really bad as a whole. But Steve Wilkes is the new head coach there. They've got fantasy offense to watch this year, obviously with David Johnson and Sam Bradford stepping in as quarterback. So that's going to be the new head coach for the Cardinals. Next one, John Gruden, man. He's going to be the head coach for the Raiders, which is big news. Apparently he really likes veteran running backs, so I don't know what that means for Marshawn Lynch. He really likes Derek Carr. Amari Cooper is still there. So it's going to be interesting to watch how their training camp goes, and then also how their preseason goes. And then Pat Shurmur, which is my favorite new hire because he's the Giants head coach, and he was the Vikings offensive coordinator. The Vikings obviously made it to the Super Bowl. He made Case Keenum look like an MVP, and their offense, Adam Thielen was one of their wide receivers that did really good. Stephon Diggs, 2 top 10 wide receivers last year. So those are some of the biggest changes in coaching. It's always just good to know which teams have a first-year coach. They're harder to predict, but you can kind of look at what those coaches did at their past roles and their past teams and kind of look and see, kind of project what that might mean for their new team. So again, Titans, Bears, Cardinals, Giants, and Raiders all have new coaches. And the Lions. The Lions' new head coach is Matt Patricia, and he was the defensive coordinator for the Patriots last year. So another defensive-minded coach. Here's some other ones. I want to talk about players here real quick. Kirk Cousins, formerly on the Redskins, he got a huge deal. Now he's going to be the quarterback for the Vikings. Vikings had a great team, like I was saying last year. Their offense was really good with Case Keenum, so it'll be really interesting to see how they do with Kirk Cousins, now throwing the ball to Adam Thielen and Stephon Diggs, and also with Dalvin Cook healthy. So that's going to be interesting to watch. Alex Smith, no longer on the Kansas City Chiefs. He's actually on the Washington Redskins now. Alex Smith is best known for being a game manager, but last year he actually spread out the field pretty well. So it's going to be interesting to see how he does with the Redskins. Jimmy Garoppolo, last year, I mean, this isn't really a team change. He was on the Niners last year, but now this is going to be his first full season as the 49ers quarterback, and he's really, really hyped up. He was formerly on the Patriots. He was Brady's backup, and some big things are expected from him in the Bay Area. Tyrod Taylor, scrambler, has got a hell of an arm. He was on the Bills last year, and now he's on the Browns. Baker Mayfield is the first-round pick in the NFL draft that is a rookie, also quarterback on the Browns. So going to have to watch what happens there in training camp and also in preseason. Sam Bradford, like I mentioned, he was on the Vikings last year until he got hurt, like week 2. And now he's the Cardinals quarterback. So that should be interesting if he can get Larry Fitzgerald the ball. Some of their other John Brown and Jerron Brown. I think they've got a couple of pretty good wide receivers out there. And then also DJ, of course, their running back. And then the last major one here is Case Keenum, who got the Vikings to the Super Bowl, like I mentioned earlier. He's now the Broncos quarterback. The Broncos last year, their wide receivers hugely underperformed. I mean, they had a ton of opportunity, and they didn't do much with it because they had terrible quarterback play. Case Keenum is now the Broncos quarterback, so we'll see how that goes. Should be interesting. Okay, now this one, now we're going to talk about running backs. This guy was Adrian Peterson's backup in Minnesota for a long time. Whenever Adrian Peterson got hurt, he was kind of like the guy you picked up. But then there was also this other guy, Matt Asiata, and I never really saw too much from him in Minnesota. But Jerick McKinnon is now the running back for the 49ers. It's saying here that the expert consensus ranking for him, which is basically there's experts in fantasy football, and they all have their rankings for players where they think they'll be drafted. And this is the consensus. So it's basically the average of where all these different experts say that a player will be drafted. And they've got him at 17. So that's like halfway through the second round. This guy's never taken on a full running back load. I don't know. I don't know a lot about him except for that he can catch balls out of the backfield. That's what he did in Minnesota. And I'm just not really sure what he's going to do on the 49ers, and I think it's kind of a high risk to pick him in the second round, but that's just my opinion there. Next is Dion Lewis. Dion Lewis was hurt for all of 2016 and actually for the beginning of 2017, and then when he came back, he quickly took on the primary role of running back for the Patriots. He was a great pickup last year if you got him in free agency. He's now in the Titans, and that's where DeMarco Murray was. DeMarco Murray retired. He had a slow year last year. He had like a bum knee or I think it was a hamstring actually, and he just wasn't good all year. So now Dion Lewis is there. It's also kind of a crowded backfield because you also have Derrick Henry, who looked great last year when he came in for DeMarco Murray, and now you've got Dion Lewis there. So that's going to be interesting to watch how that backfield plays out. I don't know. They've got Dion Lewis going ahead of Derrick Henry right now in the expert consensus ranking. So we'll see. We got to watch that in the offseason here, in training camp, and also in preseason to see how they use him and Derrick Henry. Let's see, Jay Ajayi, we know he went to the Eagles from Miami last year. That was another trade. Carlos Hyde, no longer, obviously, like I was saying, Jerick McKinnon is going to be the starter for the 49ers. Carlos Hyde is now, was on the 49ers. He was their starter. He was like a top 10 running back last year. A lot of people don't know that. He's now the running back for the Browns. Again, The Browns also drafted a running back, Nick Chubbs. He's a rookie. And no one really knows how that's going to play out. So that's going to be definitely something to watch in the offseason again here. C.J. Anderson, underwhelming campaign last year for the Broncos. He's now on the Panthers. The Panthers have Christian McCaffrey, but no one's really sure. I don't know if I'm sure that he's a 3-down back. I don't think he is. I think that they'll use C.J. Anderson the way that they wanted to use Jonathan Stewart last year. Sorry, my mouth's getting a little dry here. Got to hydrate up before this next time. Speaking of Jonathan Stewart, he is now the Giants. He also, again, the Giants drafted a great rookie running back, arguably one of the top running backs in a long time to come into the draft, and that is obviously Saquon Barkley. So not really sure what Jonathan Stewart's going to do. He didn't look very good last year for the Panthers, so we'll just have to see. Who else here? Isaiah Crowell, no longer on the Browns, on the Jets. Doesn't really matter. Doug Martin on the Raiders. That's kind of a big deal. From the Bucs to the Raiders, playing under John Gruden. So that should be pretty interesting. I don't know what to think about that. I'm going to have to think about that and talk about that on a different episode. LeGarrette Blount was on the Eagles. Now he's on the Lions. The interesting part there is he used to play for the Patriots, and Matt Patricia, who's now the Lions head coach, was also on the Patriots when Blount was on the Patriots. So we'll see how he uses him there, probably like near the end zone. Frank Gore, kind of old, super old, kind of really old. He went from the Colts to the Dolphins. Not sure how much of an impact that is. Chris Ivory, no longer on the Jags. He's on the Bills. Thomas Rawls went from the Seahawks to the Jets. Terrence West went from the Ravens to the Saints. So that's pretty much it in relevance from running backs changing teams. All right, wide receivers. Going to go through these a little bit quicker here. Brandon Cooks, formerly on the Patriots, now on the Rams, just signed a 5-year extension today, and he hasn't even played a snap there. So that just shows how they feel about him. Allen Robinson, got hurt last year. I think he tore his ACL or ruptured his Achilles. I got to double check on that. He was a huge producer for the for the Jags in the 2015 season. Didn't do much in 2016, and played one game in 2017. So we'll see he's still hurt right now, but somehow he's going 21, and he's on the Bears. So watch out for that. Michael Crabtree was great on the Raiders last year, now on the Ravens. Jarvis Landry got traded. He was on the Dolphins, and now he's on the Browns. Sammy Watkins went from the Rams to the Chiefs. Jordy Nelson from the Packers to the Raiders. Kelvin Benjamin, this happened last year. He went from the Panthers to the Bills. Allen Hurns, he was kind of like the second wide receiver in Jacksonville, went from the Jags to the Cowboys, which is the reason that's significant is now that Dez isn't there, no one really knows who the pass catcher is going to be in Dallas, so that's a guy to look at. Ryan Grant from the Redskins went to the Colts. Jordan Matthews from the Bills went to the Patriots. Tavon Austin from the Rams went to the Cowboys, so that's another guy that went to the Cowboys. A couple more here. Terrell Pryor, no longer on the Redskins, on the Jets. Martavis Bryant went from the Steelers to the Raiders. And that's about it. Everyone else didn't really do much last year. Tight ends, just a few of them to note here. Probably about 5. Jimmy Graham, who had a great season last year with the Seahawks, probably had like 7 or 8 touchdowns, is now on the Packers with Aaron Rodgers, so that should be pretty interesting. Trey Burton, who I was talking about earlier, tight end for the Eagles last year, who filled in for Zach Ertz, is now on the Bears. Austin Seferian-Jenkins, also known as ASJ, went from the Jets to the Jags. Ben Watson from the Ravens to the Saints, not really too important. Eric Ebron from Detroit to Indianapolis. That's about it there. That's about it. I mean, we talked about quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, coaches. We're about 20 minutes here. So until next time, this is the Commish. Let me know how you liked the show. I'm going to upload the video to YouTube. And next week, what are we talking about next week? Let me check on next week. kind of going to go over the news and also going to talk about 10 of my fantasy football fundamentals. Until next time, hope you all have a great week, and I'll talk to you soon. Peace.